After finishing up my fall projects, I set out to see a few sights I had yet to see. I left Bend and drove west on US 20, passing through Tumalo on the way to Sisters. US 20 is actually the longest road in the US, spanning 3,365 miles from Newport, Oregon to Boston, Massachusetts, passing through Yellowstone Park, Chicago, and Cleveland. In Oregon, going east from Newport, the highway winds through the coastal range, past Oregon State University in Corvallis, and then across the Willamette Valley. After crossing the MTM Pass, it goes through Bend, traverses the Oregon High Desert, and crosses the Snake River into Idaho. Sisters is a cute tourist town, but it can get very busy in the summertime. Highway 20 is a major artery from central Oregon to the Willamette Valley, and the traffic through town slows to a crawl almost every day in the summer. At one time, such notables as NFL quarterback Dan Fouts and Tonya lived in Sisters. I stopped in Sisters for breakfast before driving on. The McKenzie Pass Highway stretches 36 miles over the McKenzie Pass from Sisters to its intersection with Oregon 126 near Belknap Springs. The highway route was originally built with private funds in the 1870s as a wagon toll road. The road was graded and surfaced between 1920 and 1924 and became an Oregon State Highway in 1925. It became a seasonal scenic highway in 1962 with the completion of the Clear Lake Belknap Springs section of Oregon 126. Since this time, the Oregon Department of Transportation closes the highway each fall and reopens it in early summer after the snow melts. The eastern side of the pass is drier, and there are burn scars most of the way. Just before you reach the pass, the road cuts through the lava field. At the top of the pass is the Dee Wright Observatory. The Dee Wright Observatory is in the Willamette National Forest at 5,325 feet above sea level, and it is about 15 miles west of Sisters. The observatory is an open shelter built with lava rock found at the construction site. The viewing windows are cut to specifically highlight the neighboring mountains. These lava tube viewing holes allow visitors to easily identify the different Cascade peaks. There is also a large bronze mountain peak finder on the observatory's roof to help visitors locate nearby geologic features, as well as the surrounding mountain peaks. From the top of the observatory, visitors have a panoramic view of the Cascade Mountain Range, including Mount Hood in the far north. The observatory was built during the 1930s by a civilian Conservation Corps crew at Camp Belknap near Clear Lake. It was completed in 1935 and is named for the construction crew's foreman, who had died the previous year after serving 24 years as a Forest Server packer and crew foreman at Camp Belknap. The western side of the Cascades gets much more rain than the east, so the forest along this section of the road is much more lush and dense. Driving west from the observatory, the highway steadily descends over 3,000 feet until the road ends at 22 miles away at the intersection with Oregon 126. From there, I drove north to Sahalee Falls on the McKenzie River. Sahalee Falls and Coosa Falls are located along the McKenzie Pass, MTM Pass, and West Cascades National Scenic Byways off Highway 126. Sahalee, or heaven, and Coosa, or sky, are Chinook jargon words, part of a rudimentary trade language that allowed indigenous people to exchange news and goods in the area. These falls mark the terminus of two thick flows of lava that dammed Clear Lake and moved into the McKenzie River 3,000 years ago.
Good afternoon from the lower portion of the Saghallie Falls on the McKenzie River up in the Oregon Cascades. It is so beautiful here. I'm having a great time with this little mini tour I'm doing today up the old McKenzie Highway across the pass, now here, and now I'm headed over to the Metolius. Hope everybody is having a great one. See ya.
After leaving Saghallie Falls, I attempted to drive to Coldwater Campground on Clear Lake. Clear Lake is the headwater of the McKenzie River, and one can walk the Clear Lake Loop Trail from the campground to view the beginning of the river where it exits the lake. However, the road to the campground is now closed for the season. I drove on for a brief stop at the Clear Lake Resort. Clear Lake is famous for its crystal clear waters. Although there is some snowmelt that fills the lake, Clear Lake is predominantly fed by underground springs that flow year-round. The clarity of the water is phenomenal. The lake was created about 3,000 years ago as the result of a lava flow from Sand Mountain. The lava created a natural dam at the south end of the lake. The waters filled up slowly, leaving many trees still standing underwater. The frigid waters, 35 to 43 degrees, have preserved many of the trees, some of which are still standing underwater. From Clear Lake, I drove east to the Metolius River. My GPS sent me down a few miles of dirt road, but it was no problem. The Metolius River is a tributary of the Deschutes River. The river flows north from springs near Black Butte, then turns sharply east, descending through a series of gorges before ending in the western end of Lake Billy Chinook. The name of the river comes from the warm springs or Sahaptin word Metula, meaning white salmon and referring to a light-colored Chinook salmon. The headwaters of the river are at Metolius Springs, where the river emerges from two clusters of springs at the base of Black Butte. Water flows to these springs from the drainage basin around Black Butte Ranch, several miles to the south. The water level in the Metolius is relatively constant. The rate of flow at the headwaters is approximately 50,000 gallons per minute, although it grows by an additional 600,000 gallons per minute by the time the river reaches Lake Billy Chinook. Similarly, the water temperature is also stable. At the river source, the water temperature is a consistent 48 degrees Fahrenheit. The river is one of Central Oregon's iconic trout fishing rivers. I have not fished it yet. It's not for amateurs, as the waters are very clear and the fish are very, very wary. After visiting the head of the river, I drove down to the Wizard Falls Fish Hatchery. Wizard Falls Hatchery was constructed in 1947. Many improvements have been made to the facility since the original construction. The hatchery has a rainbow trout broodstock, which supply rainbow trout to the Deschutes subbasin and southeast Oregon. The hatchery is used for incubation and rearing of kokanee salmon and rainbow trout to provide for recreational fishing program objectives, and the incubation and rearing of spring chinook and summer steelhead as part of a reintroduction program in the upper Deschutes Basin. Brook trout and cutthroat trout fingerlings are reared for the air stocking programs on odd years.
Here, fishies, fishy. Here, fishy, fishy.
The grounds of the hatchery are lovely, set along the river under beautiful pine trees. The one-lane bridge over the river is charming, and the color of the water in the river near the bridge is fantastic. And the kid in me loved feeding those huge rainbow trout. If only I could catch one that big. Well, there's next year, I guess. I really enjoyed this day trip around the area, but I'm looking forward to getting home to the desert. The warm weather here is almost done, and you know what that means.